But we call it the 4 P's of partnership, and that's prayer, provision, participation, and party.
Buongiorno. You're listening to Going, Where God is at Work, a podcast that sits at the intersection of missions theory and practice. We're walking on our call to ministry in faraway places and happy to have you join us on the journey. I'm your host, Jesse Pauli, a missions leader serving in Rome. I'm here with Alessandro Di Leonardo, our church planter in Cisterna di Latina, and Jen Williamson, our missiologist who lives and works in Lyon. And if you've been following our mini-series, this is the episode that we have a guest with us. We have Jonathan Wilson, missions pastor from Florida, and he'll be sharing a little bit later more about who he is. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Jesse. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jonathan, we're so grateful to have you with us today. And we like to kick these off with some sort of a little icebreaker question, something to kind of get us. Sometimes these transition really well into our topic. Other times it's a little bit of a rough transition. I think this one's going to be a great transition, though, because we want to ask the question, have you ever had a communication faux pas or mishap? It can be about anything.
Oh, man, I'd love to share something that happened Sunday. Our leadership staff, we call it XLT, Executive Leadership Team. And just a quick story here. Our lead pastor had sent on a group text that he forgot his notebook for our new member class. This is Sunday morning before 3 worship services are about to take place. And so he asked the other 3 of us on that text thread, if anybody swings by my office, can you pick up my notebook and bring it backstage so I'll have it for the class after church? And so Brian, our family pastor, he responds, I'll grab it in just a minute. And then Jake, our administrative pastor, replies, hurry up. And I'm like, what's going on? And then Jake replies, sorry, that was trying to click things on my watch with dirty hands. And so what was funny is here's, in this technology, sometimes, what an analogy. Sometimes we have dirty hands and we end up clicking the wrong message and it sends the wrong message. And so we had fun with it. My reply was, come on, Brian, hurry up. You can do faster. So anyway, yeah, that's a fresh faux pas right there.
That's great.
Yeah, autocorrect, especially, I don't know about you guys, when you have 2 languages going on your phone, sometimes it gets cray-cray. Like what my phone thinks I'm trying to say is not at all what I'm trying to say, especially the images, because like there's a lot of faux amis, like, but the word that we would say, I need to go to the grocery store, but I'm out of gas, means goal in French. So whenever I type but, it's like giving me a picture of a soccer goal, as if that's like what I'm trying to communicate. Or bread is pain, which is spelled pain, P-I-A-N. So if I'm saying I have a pain, then I get baguette pictures that are trying to like go into my into my text.
Yeah, I would say for me, one of the fun ones that we've dealt with is just that simple hitting enter too fast in the middle of a message, and then you have to respond with another message apologizing for hitting enter on the message previous, and had a few of those that have gone out, and a little mishap there. I've also had a lot of scheduling mishaps, and I don't know if that's more of a communication issue or just more of me not being good at keeping an agenda, but there's been literally times where I've shown up on the wrong day and the wrong hour and asked everyone else, where are you? And found out that I was there on the wrong day, the wrong hour. But
that's a Jesse issue.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of Jesse issues, honestly.
My son knows how to hack my Facebook account, so he often posts things as if he is me. That is not me. So it's not really the mistake is he knows my login. But like when I was, I don't know, he was like 18 or 19 years old. He posted on my Facebook, I can't believe I'm pregnant. And all of my friends were freaking out. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was my son. This is not me. Another time he said, well, that was interesting. Now I know what it's like to spend the night in a French jail. Most people believed they were catching on that my son was getting into my Facebook and doing these things. Although my mother-in-law bought it, hook, line, and sinker, believed I was in jail. So I don't know what that says, but there we are.
Oh, that's good. Well, this is what our episode today is about. It's about communication. And no, it's not a marriage podcast today. It's about missions. And we wanted to have Jonathan on because Jonathan is a missions pastor for a church in Florida. We're going to hear a little bit in just a second from him and get to know him a little bit better. But as a missions pastor, we were thinking, how cool would it be to be able to hear the ideas of how missionaries communicate, how the church communicates with missionaries, and just kind of explore a little bit deeper the expectations and some of the best practices and things that we've seen. But before we dive into those questions and that stuff, Jonathan, can you give us a little bit a background? Kind of, are you married? Do you have kids? What kind of sports do you enjoy? Have you ever been an ESPN broadcaster or anything like that?
Yes, married to Kimberly. We celebrate year 28 this year. We have one daughter who is a sophomore in college at the Baptist University of Florida. And so, no, have never been on ESPN, but have in a previous life before full time ministry was in television news, sports reporter, news assignment editor at several TV stations in Virginia and then in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, cool.
So, just long story short, that was the goal. As an elementary student was to grow up and be a news anchor. God gave me just some opportunities to live out that dream in the process of calling me to full-time vocational ministry. And so even today, I think we can all look back on experience in life and see how it's built to what God's called us to now. And so even in my job as a staff member at a church, communications is a big part of what I do here at Fruit Cove Baptist Church.
Very good. I was actually going to ask you the name of the church if you could share that. That's cool. And you said you've been married for 28 years, so you probably are like intermediate level in the communication, not quite expert yet, right?
Not quite expert. Yeah, I can't write any book there yet. Maybe a book of mistakes, and things we've learned from. But no, just love being married. To my best friend, partner in ministry, partner in life. God has been very good.
So cool. Awesome. Well, that's yeah. It's not a marriage podcast. I'll stop making those jokes, but it is cool to
Hey,
see
but
how
we could cover
communication.
that someday.
Yeah, we could definitely, but it is communication. Just is part of so many aspects of life, and marriage is the one that usually gets associated with it. But in this case, ministry is so important too. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about the transition to going from a sports broadcaster in television, local news to the missions pastor, and maybe elaborate a little bit more on the crossover and how you've seen different things be able to be used in ministry.
I was a sophomore in college at Liberty University. I went on a mission trip with my church from Virginia to South Korea. And as a college student, that's when, on that short-term mission trip, that's when I felt God calling me to ministry. I went back to college and I didn't want to change my major because that meant more school. And so I continued with my broadcast journalism major. That led to an internship, which led to a full-time job and in TV. I was also working part-time in ministry at a church as a student pastor. And so that was my deal with God. God, you called me to ministry. I'm doing it as a student pastor at Calvary Baptist Church. But you've also allowed me to live up my dreams in television news, and that's what's paying the bills. So I thought that was my deal with God. Then one day in the lunchroom, the break room there at Channel 13 in Lynchburg, Virginia, a good friend, Stephen Cropper, he was the meteorologist, chief weather guy, comes in and says, "Hey, Jonathan, if you're serious about ministry, my dad says you need to go to seminary." Now, Cropper's dad at the time was a pastor in Atlanta, and my friends knew, that I was looking at ministry, and for whatever reason, it was the conversation from the chief meteorologist that led me to go ahead and start the process of going to seminary. And 4 months later, I was at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas. And so, it's interesting. My dad's a pastor. My dad had told me, hey, I probably need to go to seminary. Other pastors had told me I need to go to seminary, but it took the weather guy of all people to kind of send me over the edge to go to seminary. So I worked in TV while I was going to seminary at KTVT, the CBS affiliate there in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Covered some big stories, a lot of great experience in life there. But then from seminary, came to Salem Baptist Church in South Metro Atlanta, Georgia, in McDonough, Georgia. Served there 5 years. From there, went to the North American Mission Board, served on the mobilization team at NAM for 9 years. Then back to local church, 5 years at First Baptist Alpharetta. And then 8 years ago, God led us to Fruit Cove Baptist Church here in the greater Jacksonville area. We're located in St. Johns County, halfway between downtown Jacksonville and St. Augustine, if your audience is familiar with that part of the country.
Okay.
But I just tell people we got here as quickly as we could. It took a while, but we love living in Florida, love the culture, love the community, love the church.
That's awesome. What is the church's relationship to cross-cultural workers, missionaries? Who do you support? What kind of ministries are they involved in? Can you give us a little bit of background there?
Yeah, so Fruit Cove currently has partners, actually 25 partners in U.S. and Canada. Most of those are church planters, church planting partners. And we have 14 international partners. We actually have ministry partnerships on every continent. And so that's pretty cool, to be involved in a church. The lead pastor had that vision years ago for Fruit Cove to have a missions footprint on every continent. And over the past 12 months, we were able to identify and partner with 3 ministries in Australia, which was the last continent for Fruit Cove to be involved with.
Wow.
So all of those partners, again, most of them are church planting partners. Some of them are marketplace ministry. Some are revitalization. Some are compassion or children's ministries. So they each have different roles, but we have a pretty strict process, a funnel, if you would, to take potential ministry partners through. And a lot of that begins with what kind of assessment they've had even before they get to the field. But we want to make sure we feel good coming alongside partners philosophically, theologically, because when we talk about partnerships at Fruit Cove, and Alessandro can speak to this because he is one of our partners, his church in Cisterna, we're long term. We're not one and done. We're not looking just to send a mission team and then go to the next city to check it off. But we want to come alongside partners for long-term ministry impact.
Yeah, I remember, Jonathan, when I got a chance to go back to visit the church, Fruit Cove, and you told me you were in 7 continents. I was blown away. Can you tell us a little bit how that looks like to communicate, either in your side, communicate to all 7, and then having all 24 either from the US and then the 14 out to communicate back to you? And I'm sure you're not, I'm saying you, but you're not a one-man team, and how that looks like and how is it done?
I think a lot of that begins with a DTR, define the relationship. And when we talk about partnering, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this would identify a 4 P's of partnership, and that's prayer, provision, participation, and party. And so we want to pray for our partners, and we want our partners to pray for us. Most of our partnerships include some kind of provision, whether that's a one-time gift or more likely a monthly support financially. We want to participate. We want to be a blessing, not a burden. And so if there's something that we can do to extend the ministry, to be extra hands and feet, come alongside a partner, then we'd love to do that. But don't make something up for us to do. Likewise, every one of our partners is eligible to participate in any of our mission trips. We'll have over 20 mission trips this year from Fruit Cove, and we have some partners participate in those. And so that participation goes both ways. And then this is what gets me in trouble with some of my Baptist friends. No, just kidding. Party. We want to celebrate. We want to identify the wins for our partners and for us. And we want to celebrate, whether it's baptisms or significant milestones like anniversary dates for a church. We want to share in that joy with our partners. And we try to do a good job letting our congregation know as well. Like, for instance, we have a partner that's turning 3 years old. The church is turning 3 years old this coming Sunday. And so we're getting word out, social media, through our announcements, that this is a partner we celebrate with. So that's where it begins, defining the relationship. And then, communication from our church. January to December is our fiscal year. And so in January, our partners can typically expect some communication from us saying, hey, we're looking forward to another year of ministry. Here's what that looks like, going back to the 4 Ps. And, it all comes down to relationships because, I mentioned the 25 US and Canadian partners, the 14 international partners. And some of those partners we know better than others. That's just reality. And so the communication then takes different forms related to how deep those relationships are. And I can talk about those in a second, but don't discount the in-person communication. That is huge. And that is one of the things that we prioritize at Fruit Cove. We want to make sure our partners know that we are right beside them. We are with them. And it's important. We have budget built into our missions budget money to help us show up even when we're not on a mission trip. And Alessandro will remember this. Shortly after his family got to Italy, Italy shut down, didn't it? COVID, that was to us in the US, when Italy went on lockdown, that's when COVID became real to us. And I don't know that I ever told Alessandro this, but in my mind, I'm thinking about this family. I'm praying for this brother, and I know how stressful it must be. And I made a commitment to myself. Hey, the first person I'm going to go see once this thing is gone, I want to go check in on Alessandro because I want him and his family to know that Fruit Cove has been praying for them, that we're with them, we're right beside them. And so pretty much as soon as I could get over there, I went and spent a couple of days, and there's nothing that can replace that in-person communication, that power of presence. But you had asked how we communicate with each other, and again, texts, WhatsApp, video updates, newsletters. A lot of that just depends on relationships, and I'm a person. I like all of those avenues, and enjoy getting those updates from the field.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was just thinking, if you had phone calls with people on all those different continents, your schedule would have you up all hours of the day. I have phone calls with people whenever they're in California. I'm like, man, that's 9 hours back, 10 hours back. I'm trying to figure out. So I can only imagine when you have people all spread across the world.
It does get challenging, for communication with partners around the world. That's why I love my iPhone has the world clock, that I can look and, I can see that, all right, yep, Sydney is still 15 hours ahead. So I got to make sure I don't call those brothers at 2:25 a.m.
Yeah.
So that's a very helpful tool for me to know, all right, it's not 7 o'clock in the morning, in South Asia. When's the best time for me to call? But I tell you what, it's pretty cool on the flip side to wake up in the morning and, I've got a text or two from ministry partners around the world. That's really encouraging. And, that's a personal touch too. That signifies a closer relationship, where I get a text from a partner, just an update, maybe on the family or a ministry challenge or a win. Those are pretty cool to wake up to.
Jonathan, what kinds of things do you think we should be communicating back, particularly with our churches? And I guess I would say, what's like essential, like you want to know this, and at what frequency, and what is helpful, you'd like to know it, and is there anything that's not helpful or that you really don't want to hear about?
I like to hear from partners related to the wins. What have they seen God do in their family, in their ministry, in their community? Because again, we want to celebrate with them on the wins. I also want to hear about the challenges. That encourages us to pray specifically for some barriers, for some challenges, and over time we can see how God answers those prayers. So I would encourage missionaries, ministry leaders, be real, be honest. And that's going to take time as your relationship with a church builds. But as trust is gained, as that relationship grows, be transparent and share the challenges. It's easy to share the wins, but the challenges are just as or even more important sometimes. And then I love the personal updates. I want to know how the family's doing. Give us some information on some specific things we can know and pray for related to the family. And when it comes to communication, a church like Fruit Cove with many mission partners, most of our guys are. I won't name names. I won't call anybody out. Most of them are pretty good about short and to the point. Maybe bullet point conversations. But that would be my encouragement: is get to the point. And the reality is, if there's a partner that wants more information, give them a way to reach out and get more information. But sometimes, if I get a newsletter where it's obvious a lot of time has been spent on this, and it's 6, 7, 8 pages, um, that's hard to read 40 of those, and I don't get 40 of those. But I would say find your method, find your preferred method as a communications avenue. Get good at it, master it. If it's a newsletter, make it the best newsletter it can be. If it's a text app, make it the best text, and stick to it. Find your method, get good at it, stick to it, and then develop that regular rhythm. We've got some great tools, all of us do, at our disposal. I have to put things on my calendar to remind me that it's time to do this. And so
Mhm.
I would encourage guys in the field, make sure you put it on your calendar, and so it doesn't slip up. And oh wait, it's been make it 3 months since I've given my partners an update. No, just get that regular rhythm of communication down.
Man,
That's really good advice.
I learn from every podcast recording we do,
Yep.
and that right there was phenomenal. I have never thought about putting on my calendar to write my next newsletter. I don't know, like I put everything on my calendar. I never have put down to write my next newsletter on the calendar. So now I'm going to start scheduling months in advance when I should be sending my next newsletter. Wow. It's so small.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
good.
small little things, but they do make the difference when you can to be more efficient.
Yeah, short and sweet is really good advice too. What about pictures? Are pictures helpful, or are they do they get in the way of the message? What are your thoughts on including visuals?
I personally love pictures, love short videos. They, especially when they accompany a point or are part of the story, they really help tell the story. And I tell you what, those pictures and video are a lot easier to share with our congregation on social media. If it, if we're allowed to, or pre-service slide, or as part of our announcement video. So don't overdo it. And then, of course, depending on where you're serving, you've got to be careful about what you put in pictures, and uh, don't be afraid to tell partners how not to use those visuals, because your security is very important as well. But yeah, I love pictures and video.
What about links? Sometimes I'll put in links if I'm involved with, say, an organization, especially if they have a website that's in English. And I think this way, if people who are really curious, what is Hope for Europe Women in Leadership, which is one of the organizations I work with, I don't have to go into all of it. I can say I went to this conference for this, and then I just put in the link. Is that is that helpful? Is that a distraction?
No, that's a good way to do it. You talk about, one of the things that I would stress is brevity and be to the point, while also giving your audience an opportunity to learn more if they want to. And so providing a link to other ministries or conferences, just to help provide additional context, that's a great way to do it. And we've got some partners that do that well.
Now, Jonathan, I don't know how many people fall under like work with you as far as the mission aspect of things, but one of the things that really I find fascinating, what you have told me and what we are doing with the Fruit Cove Baptist Church, is how you have how the church adopts missionaries, where you kind of give ministries the charge to take care of that particular missionary. And so I think that would help out with communicating, like instead of trying to have everything funneled through you, there are different ministries that take care of that missionary. And I thought that was really fascinating, where maybe I am not communicating always with you, Jonathan, but the ministry that you have put in charge to oversee or encourage and be with has been a great at communicating. Maybe you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as a staff, we really have kind of a skeleton staff related to our missions office. Uh, but what we do, we work hard to activate and mobilize our lay people. Uh, do a couple of layers there. We have a number of connect groups. It's a Sunday school model. We call them connect groups, but every connect group, they identify a local school, a local ministry, and then either a national or international partner that they want to come alongside. And it goes back to those 4 Ps. We're asking those groups to pray and provide and participate and party. And so again, that's when that relationship, as it's defined, gives some good rails for connect groups to run on. We also have ministry areas. Every church has ministry areas, whether that's worship or student ministry area, men's ministry area, women's ministry, special needs ministry areas. List goes on. But for instance, our worship ministry is the primary ministry area that has a relationship with you, Alessandro, because as we have gotten to know you more and your church, one of the things that we learned that you needed, or you were asking for, is some help along those lines. And so I came back, talked with our worship pastor at the time, and we devised a plan to send a couple of teams. A couple of teams have been over, to Living Word in Cisterna. And so that's been a beautiful relationship that is formed. And now you've got, some people at Fruit Cove Baptist Church in the worship ministry who love Cisterna, who love your family because they've been there, they know you, they've built relationships with you. And so, you can see how different ministry areas really across the board for other partners are doing similar things along those lines. Our college and young adult ministry has decided to team up with our partners in the UK. And so our next couple of mission trips to the UK will be primarily college students and young adults. And so that way, we've just seen the benefit of identifying specific partnerships, because we're a fairly large church. And while most mission trips are open to anybody in the church, we've seen a lot of value, really kind of making that big church smaller and those multiple partnerships smaller with these specific partnerships between ministry areas and our partners.
That's cool. And I like how it sounds like you identify a need that the missionaries have and then find where in the church you can meet that need. So, I mean, the sound team idea is a great idea. Or, yeah, if there's a youth movement happening in the UK, why not send other young people to come alongside? I love that. And it sounds like communication is healthy then between the church and the missionaries, because you are actually listening and hearing what the needs are, and then looking for an adequate response, rather than just saying, "Oh, that's great. Now I'm going to send you our senior citizens to your youth group." You're thinking of the right connections, and I think that's a sign to me of a healthy communication and rapport between the field and the senders.
I really like that idea too of different. Did you say like your small groups kind of adopting a missionary as well as
That's
different
right.
ministry areas?
Yeah,
I
and
really
you
like that. I've written that down and your 4 Ps. I'm gonna talk to my Sunday church about that.
yeah, the reality is some of our groups do a better job than others. I mean, that's
Of
just
course.
reality. We have some groups that have adopted 3 or 4 partners because they love coming alongside our partners and sending people from their groups, on short term mission trips. Uh, so it's still a work in progress. We've got a couple of groups that still need a little pushing and prodding, but then we have some groups that are taking up the slack for them.
Let's
I
talk.
really love
Oh, go
it.
ahead.
I was talking in the earlier podcast about how I wish I could have like a communications point person where I could sort of diffuse bulks amounts of information, and then that person could be the spokesperson, in our church or in the States. And I'm thinking that could even happen within those groups if those groups become sort of the place where they know what's going on. They have my phone number. They have our WhatsApp. They know, what's going on in our lives. And then anytime there's any questions, they could be the first, go to on that.
Well, part of our job as pastors is to give ministry away. I mean, it's one thing for me to know all of our partners and to have been where our partners serve. But I tell you what, there's only so much I can do, and so I've got to multiply myself, and that's a biblical model, isn't it? So one way I choose to do that, we have a missions team. It's comprised of 16 lay leaders, and most of those, I call them my point guards. And these are our team leaders for our mission trips, or they're individuals who just have a passion for missions and they want to be on our team. And so I don't make decisions in a silo. I mentioned, that we've got a funnel that we take prospective partnerships through. That team helps me run the funnel. And what they are also proving to be is multiple advocates for the missions ministry of our church, not only in our church, in our congregation, but in our community. And so that's one way we've multiplied. And then the other, just mobilizing, activating connect groups. We've got 24 adult connect groups in our church. And so once they're partnered with a local school, local ministry, national, international missionaries, then you've got that many more people who not only know about our partners, but who are talking about and praying for our partners.
Yeah, no, that's really good. One of the things I wanted to dive into a little bit even deeper into this that we're talking about, because we talk about this podcast wanting to be at the intersection of theory and practice, and so I wanted to ask. You've given us quite a few different ways that you're communicating and dispersing um, the responsibility of communicating with your partners. What what are some of the can you just give us some of the practical actual things that you've seen happen, and what has proven to be maybe sustainable and what has maybe been unsustainable, and so you kind of have pivoted or switched ways of communicating, or realized that maybe a different season calls for a different way. Any stories or examples you could give us around that?
One of the things that has worked well for us in recent years is something we call Move Weekend. We now do it the last weekend of September, and it's our missions weekend. It actually starts on a Wednesday and goes through Sunday. And we really use this as a catalytic event to raise the awareness of what our church is doing in missions. And so a lot of communication takes place leading up to that event. We're sharing stories from partners even before Move Weekend takes place. And then uh, I'll think back to, this past Move event on Wednesday night, we brought in some partners from North Africa, Middle East. They serve in the Horn of Africa. And so, since that service it's not on radio, it's not recorded, it's not streamed, they were able really just to share a lot of really good information with our congregation, communicating the challenges of where they serve and also some of the wins, that God has allowed them to be a part of. We can't share that on Sundays, because we're broadcast and their identities would be known. So we do that on Wednesday, and then Thursday is time for some of those small groups, those ministry areas and connect groups to connect with our special guests that we've brought in. Normally, we bring 6 to 8 guests in from you know around the country and around the world for that weekend. Um, then on Friday, we have a prayer night, a prayer time for UUPGs, unreached, unengaged people groups. And we had a couple that serve with International Mission Board. They were in the Middle East in the process of transferring to Central America, but they led that prayer time. And, a lot of communication took place on the number of UUPGs and how God is raising up young people, especially to go identify and connect with these who have not heard the gospel. Then on Saturday, we have what we call Serve Day, and that's where we mobilize several hundred people throughout our community to serve our community, all in the name of Jesus. And then, really, the exclamation mark is on Sunday morning in worship, in our worship services, where we have a panel conversation. This past September, we had 4 partners there, and it's just a guided conversation and a lot of communication to our congregation on who our partners are. For instance, we had one of our church planters from New York City, uh, one of the first church plants in Harlem in over 50 years. And so Fruit Cove is coming alongside them to help, push back the darkness and make the name of Jesus known in that section in New York City. And San Diego was represented, the Horn of Africa, Romania. And so uh, that Wednesday through Sunday had a lot of communication elements, video, social media, emails, in person, handouts. We also do an annual missions guide that's a pretty nice looking full color catalog that uh, identifies all our partners locally, nationally, and globally. And at the end, or at the back page, it lists our 2025 or our next year's mission trip opportunities. So that next Sunday, we have our first interest meeting for mission trips for the following year. And so you can see how we build up to Move Weekend. We have Move Weekend, and then we use that interest in missions the following Sunday to have a large gathering to share where we're going on mission trips the following year. And here's how you can be involved in that. And so we're just kind of on the tail of that cycle. We'll continue to have mission moments in our welcome videos. Like this coming Sunday, we give an update on how our church has been involved with disaster relief, compassion efforts in Western North Carolina and the Gulf Coast of Florida. We've sent several teams to a partner church on the other side of the state in the past couple of weeks to help them minister to their community. So Sunday we'll see some video of that. We'll see some still photos from those teams, and then we'll encourage our people who haven't been to that part of the state. Hey, here's how you can get involved. We've got some other short-term opportunities for you to serve. And so there is always something to share with our church, whether that's in person, on video, social media. Fruitcove.com/missions is our missions page. But wow, it's sometimes it's a challenge to keep up with all of it. But God has given us an opportunity to come alongside some great ministry partners, and we want to help tell their stories.
Now, Jonathan, I've been in this Move event, and it was unbelievable, amazing to see really how the church is involved. But I know, having been part of it, that this is more where the missionaries you guys support are invited to come. But what happens when a missionary is coming to the States, maybe for like a furlough, or they happen to be going for a wedding or something like that? What are some of the expectations you have for missionaries who happen to be back home in regards to communicating that they are there? And, you don't just find out on Facebook what you're here, or giving an update to the church. What does that look like?
No, that's a good question. And I think that goes back to this: we want to be a blessing, not a burden mindset. So, in reality, I would say, hey, there's really no set expectation for you to report back. We'd love to hear from you, but I also understand you've got a lot of people to see. You may be coming back to spend time with family. You may be coming back, to either celebrate an event or to mourn, the passing of a friend or family member. I get that. But if we have a partner that's in our area, most of the time they're going to reach out. One of the things our church has as part of our missions ministry is a mission house. And this is a nice house. It's 4 miles from the church. It's in one of our neighborhoods, and so we offer this to our partners when they are on stateside assignment, whether that's for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. As long as it's available, we want to fill those dates. Because that's what our church bought it for: is a retreat, a refuge, a place for people to come. And it's a 20-minute drive to the beach from that house, and so. Even when our partners stay in that house, the only expectation is to rest, enjoy, take some time off. And if you want to come to church on Sunday, man, we'd love to see you. If you want to speak to a connect group, hey, we can identify some connect groups for you to speak to. But again, we want to be a blessing, not a burden. And so that's our mindset there.
That's great. And one of the things I'm hearing you say without saying it is the level of intentionality and communication from the missionaries and from the church to the missionaries seems to be strong and important. Um, I have a couple questions I'm thinking of that I want to ask to wrap up, but one of them is, what about communication about money? How does that look like? What is that? That's kind of one of those faux pas missionaries and money. If you get an email from a missionary, they're usually about to ask you for money or something. But kind of, what does that look like? What's the culture around Fruit Cove and just kind of what you've seen? How do you handle communicating about money? What are the needs? Or take it wherever you want, but that's
that
the
is
gist
one
of
of the
it.
4 Ps, right? That's the provision part, and we get it, we understand, and it's helpful in my chair to know what the needs are, but not only what the needs are. Okay, here's what the Lord has provided so far, and that goes back to the honesty and transparency. Um, so here's what it's going to take for us to get and stay on the field. Here is where we're at. Here is what's been pledged above that hasn't come in yet. So if Fruit Cove would consider something along these lines, that would be helpful. That gives me a number to go back to my team with and see, hey, is this a ministry that we feel the Lord leading us to be a part of? If so, what is the level of participation? And we have several different levels of support. And again, I go back to sometimes that's a one-time gift. Maybe a family is moving to Europe, and the expenses related to moving a crate or just buying new furniture when they get there. That's going to look a little different than maybe regular monthly support. One of the things that we do as a church, and this can be helpful, I think, to maybe churches that are listening and also missionaries, ministry partners. What we look at related to a partnership is we want a partner to see Fruit Cove along the lines of an actively engaged family member. Now, we can't be there in person for worship, but what we try to do for the most part when it comes to monthly finances, consider us a tithing family member, if that makes sense. And so it's an amount that we come up with to the best of our ability to signify, hey, this is what if we were a tithing family member of this church or of this ministry, this is what it would look like. Now, with that too, we're also on kind of a system where after a year, after a couple years, that amount does decrease. And it's not because we don't like the ministry or we don't want to partner. It's because we've got other ministry partners coming on board at that initial level. And so that's just the formula that we use for the most part.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I think that kind of wraps up a lot of the questions we had. And I guess, is there an application form? How do we all join Fruit Cove now that you've given us such a great
Well, our next Discover
explanation?
Fruit Cove class is in December. You can come. And, now, listen, I would say, hey, if you guys find yourself in Northeast Florida, come see us. This is a great community. It's a great church. We love missions. We love missionaries. And so we'd love to have you here.
No, I think the things that you've shared, though, have been really good and helpful, Jonathan. I think not just to missionaries serving abroad, but also to missions pastors and ministry partners, even wherever they're at, that they're sending out missionaries, just to kind of to draw some conclusions of what you've said. I hear the pray, provide, participate, party. I think that's something that's transferable to many settings. And I think the other part is the intentionality. And then the other thing I heard you saying was not being tied to one method of communication. So it sounds like you're kind of open to receiving newsletters and videos and text messages. Like, you just kind of are willing to leverage any means of communication, just as long as we are able to stay in communication. And I think that's something that we can encourage the rest of the body of Christ to explore and to seek out. So thank you so much for your time and for jumping on with us. And we look forward to more. I get to see some of the benefits of the partnership you guys have with Alessandro. We've done some events together. I got to meet some of your Fruit Cove members, and so it's really cool to see even firsthand the blessing you're able to be to Living Word.
Well, thank you guys. I've enjoyed our time together and appreciate what you're doing on the field.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jonathan and found it insightful. Your ministry is important, and we hope that you consider your time with us as an investment in the work that you do. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. Until next time, keep going wherever Jesus leads.